And during that investigation, we identified narcotics trafficking, illegal gambling, weapons possession, as you see over here to my right and your left, and of course, as I already mentioned, a tremendous amount of violence.
Can't let it happen. They're destroying. I believe we lost 300,000 people last year to drugs, 300,000. Fentanyl and other drugs. Each boat that we sink carries drugs that would kill more than 25,000 Americans. We will not let that happen.
This all started in October when we pulled over a gentleman named Mohammed Hassan. He was later identified as the operator of Super Saver Food Store, and he was arrested during a traffic stop, and he was in possession of hashish at that time.
A grocery store's dark secret. How cartels turned a Florida market into a drug empire picture. This, you're grabbing a cart at your local grocery store, ready to pick up some snacks or maybe a gallon of milk. The fluorescent lights hum above, and the aisles are lined with familiar brands. But something feels off. The customers aren't carrying groceries, and the parking lot is buzzing with shady exchanges. In Brooksville, Florida, the Super Saver Food Store was no ordinary market. It was a cartel-run headquarters hiding a sinister world of drugs, guns, and violence. What started with a brutal pistol whipping spiraled into one of the most explosive investigations in Hernando County history, dubbed Operation King's Fall. This is the story of how a seemingly innocent store became the epicenter of a criminal empire, leading to 22 arrests and a chilling glimpse into the cartel's grip on America. Buckle up for a wild ride through a tale of deception, danger, and a community fighting back. The facade of normalcy, a grocery store like no other. At first glance, the Super Saver Food Store in Brooksville was just another neighborhood staple. Nestled in a quiet Florida town, it blended in with its faded signage and shelves stocked with everyday essentials. But the locals knew something wasn't right. Cars pulled in and out of the parking lot at all hours, yet few people walked out with grocery bags. Behind the counter, the clerks seemed more interested in hushed conversations than ringing up purchases. What was really happening inside those walls? The answer was as shocking as it was terrifying. The store was a front for a sophisticated criminal operation, run by a gang with ties to international cartels. Narcotics trafficking, illegal gambling, weapons violations, and brutal acts of violence were all part of the daily grind. The store's facade of normalcy masked a dark underbelly where drugs and cash changed hands under the guise of legitimate business. It wasn't until a violent incident shook the community that the truth began to unravel. A grocery store where customers are pistol-whipped instead of served. How did this small-town market become a cartel stronghold? Let's dive into the moment that blew the lid off this operation. The spark that ignited the investigation. The unraveling of the Super Saver Food Store's secret began with a routine traffic stop in October 2024. Hernando County Sheriff's deputies pulled over Muhammad Hassan, the store's operator, for what seemed like a minor infraction. But when officers discovered hashish in his possession, the stop turned into a pivotal moment. Hassan wasn't just a small-time dealer, he was a key figure in a sprawling criminal network. His arrest sent ripples through the sheriff's office, prompting a deeper look into the store's operations. By November 21, 2024, detectives had launched a full-scale investigation. Undercover operatives infiltrated the store, blending in with customers to document the chaos unfolding inside. What they found was staggering. The Super Saver was a hub for illegal gambling, with payouts handled in-house by Hassan and his crew. Drug deals were conducted openly behind the counter, with cash and narcotics exchanging hands in plain sight. Outside, the parking lot was a hot spot for quick handoffs, where dealers passed drugs to buyers without a second thought. But it was the violence that truly exposed the store's dark side. Surveillance footage captured a chilling incident. A customer was pistol-whipped inside the store, her cries ignored by a clerk who stood by, complicit. Another video showed a suspect chasing a woman out of the store and firing at her car as she fled, the bullet shattering her back window and missing her head by mere inches. This wasn't just a grocery store, it was a battleground. Gunfire in the aisles, drug deals at the register. How did this operation go unnoticed for so long? Let's uncover the shocking details of what went down inside. Inside the den, a hotbed of crime and chaos. Step inside the Super Saver food store, and you'd be stepping into a world far removed from grocery shopping. Surveillance cameras painted a grim picture. Customers were harassed, robbed, and assaulted in broad daylight. One video showed a woman cowering behind the counter as a suspect brutally pistol-whipped her, the clerk standing idly by. Another clip captured a 17-year-old gang member, Dominic Delaney, chasing a customer out of the store and firing at her fleeing car. The bullet struck the back window, narrowly missing her head, a moment that could have turned the investigation into a murder case. Delaney, a member of the notorious KBM gang, was no stranger to crime despite his youth. His extensive juvenile record didn't stop him from committing adult-level offenses, and deputies charged him as an adult with attempted murder, shooting into a vehicle, criminal mischief, and possession of a firearm by a delinquent. But Delaney wasn't alone. Another suspect, 18-year-old Levante Holland, a documented Gangster Disciples member, was caught on camera pistol-whipping a customer in the middle of the store. Shockingly, while the assault unfolded, another gang member was on a jail call with a previously arrested accomplice, Arthur Williams, giving a real-time play-by-play of the violence. The store was a revolving door of criminal activity. Fights broke out in the parking lot, with one video showing a woman dragging another across the pavement as drug deals continued uninterrupted. Illegal gambling machines hummed in the background, raking in cash for the gang. The Super Saver wasn't just a front. It was the beating heart of a criminal enterprise, operating with brazen confidence under the noses of an unsuspecting community. From pistol whippings to parking lot shootouts, the Super Saver was a crime scene in plain sight. But how did investigators finally bring it down? Let's follow the trail to the historic raid. Operation King's Fall, the takedown that shook Brooksville. After nearly a year of painstaking evidence gathering, the Hernando County Sheriff's Office was ready to strike. The investigation, dubbed Operation King's Fall, was one of the most complex in the county's history. Detectives had spent months building their case, running undercover buys, analyzing surveillance footage, and mapping out the gang's network. When the time came, they moved with precision, executing multiple warrants across Brooksville in a series of coordinated raids designed to catch the suspects off guard. The operation was a masterclass in law enforcement strategy. Dozens of officers swarmed the Super Saver food store and related locations, ensuring no one could tip off their accomplices. The result was staggering. 22 suspects were arrested, including Muhammad Hassan, his brother, and a roster of gang members tied to the operation. The raids uncovered a treasure trove of illicit goods, over 3 pounds of cocaine valued at $100,000, 57 grams of fentanyl, potent enough to kill thousands, multiple firearms, illegal gambling machines, stacks of cash, and a cache of prescription pills. Sheriff Al Ninehuis revealed the toll this operation had taken on the community. For years, residents had lived in fear, too terrified to speak out against the gang's reign of terror. Reports of violence and suspicious activity had flooded the sheriff's office, but the threat of retaliation kept witnesses silent. With the arrests, Brooksville could finally exhale, but the investigation was far from over. More suspects remained at large, and deputies vowed to continue their pursuit. 22 arrests, millions in drugs seized, and a community liberated. But were these small-time crooks, or was something bigger at play? Let's uncover the cartel connections that shocked investigators. From local gangs to global cartels, the bigger picture. The Super Saver food store wasn't an isolated operation, it was a cog in a much larger machine. Investigators uncovered ties to some of the world's most notorious cartels, including the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel, CJNG. These organizations have long used Florida as a gateway for their drug trafficking empires, exploiting its ports, highways, and urban centers to move massive quantities of narcotics across the country. Just weeks before Operation King's Fall, Polk County Sheriff's Office was closing in on another cartel-linked operation. Sheriff Grady Judd revealed a smuggling tactic straight out of a crime thriller. Traffickers were hiding fentanyl and cocaine inside functional car batteries. These rigged batteries were swapped out on the side of the road, disguised as routine repairs. In one bust, deputies seized 64 pounds of drugs, including enough fentanyl to overdose 14.5 million people, equivalent to the populations of entire states like Ohio or Pennsylvania. The Polk County operation targeted Sinaloa affiliates in Phoenix, Arizona, and CJNG smugglers moving powdered fentanyl stamped with Cartoon Network logos, a chilling cartel trademark to brand their product. Two key players, Regina Headsmith and Adrian Monga, were arrested after delivering thousands of fentanyl pills and kilos of drugs to Florida. The operation netted 35 pounds of fentanyl pills and 8 arrests, striking a significant blow to the cartel's supply lines. But the scale of the problem was far larger than one county could contain. Drugs hidden in car batteries and branded with cartoon logos. The cartel's audacity is unmatched, but their reach extends beyond land. Let's head to the high seas for a record-breaking bust that changed the game. Operation Pacific Viper, a battle on the high seas. Florida's drug problem doesn't just start on its streets, it flows through its waters. On August 26, 2025, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Hamilton docked at Port Everglades with a historic haul, 76,140 pounds of narcotics, including 61,140 pounds of cocaine and 14,400 pounds of marijuana. Valued at nearly $500 million, this seizure was the largest single drug offload in Coast Guard history. It was the culmination of Operation Pacific Viper, a relentless crackdown targeting smuggling routes in the Eastern Pacific and Caribbean. The operation began in early August, with Coast Guard and Navy teams hitting traffickers hard. On August 8th, the Hamilton intercepted a suspicious boat south of Mexico, seizing 4,000 pounds of cocaine and 3 smugglers. Days later, the USS Sampson, supported by a Coast Guard team and a Navy helicopter, chased down another vessel on a busy smuggling route. When the smugglers tried to dump their cargo into the ocean, authorities still recovered 300 pounds of drugs. On August 16th, south of the Galapagos, the cutter Stone disabled a boat's engine with precision gunfire, seizing 3,500 pounds of cocaine and scuttling the vessel. The pace was unrelenting. Over 19 interdictions, Operation Pacific Viper netted 13,000 pounds of cocaine, 11 smugglers, and over $200 million in cartel product. Many vessels originated from Venezuela, linked to organized crime groups like Tren de Aragua and Cartel de los Soles. The Coast Guard's efforts highlighted a sobering truth. 80% of narcotics seizures happen at sea, and Florida's ports are a primary entry point for these deadly drugs. Boats set ablaze, smugglers in custody, and billions in drugs off the streets. But why is Florida the epicenter of this crisis? Let's explore the state's role in America's drug war. Why Florida? The epicenter of America's drug war. Florida's geography makes it a smuggler's dream. With 350 miles of coastline, numerous ports, and proximity to Latin America, the state is a natural hub for drug trafficking. Cities like Miami, Orlando, and Tampa don't just absorb drugs locally, they serve as distribution hubs, funneling narcotics north to Atlanta, the Carolinas, and the Northeast. The Super Saver food store was a microcosm of this larger problem, a local front for a global network. The Sinaloa and CJNG cartels have deep roots in Florida, exploiting its infrastructure to move fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamine. Their methods are as creative as they are ruthless, hiding drugs in car batteries, branding pills with cartoon logos, and using grocery stores as operational bases. The violence that spills over, pistol whippings, shootings, and gang fights, leaves communities like Brooksville living in fear, with residents too scared to speak out. But law enforcement is fighting back. Operation King's Fall and Operation Pacific Viper are part of a broader effort to disrupt cartel activity. From local sheriff's offices to the U.S. Coast Guard, authorities are hitting cartels where it hurts, their profits and supply lines. Yet the cartel's resilience and innovation mean the battle is far from won. Sheriff Nienhuis emphasized that the Brooksville investigation is ongoing, with more arrests expected in the coming months. Florida's streets and seas are a battleground, but the war is far from over. What does the future hold for this state and its fight against cartels? Let's wrap up with a look at the road ahead. The road ahead. Can Florida turn the tide? The bust at Super Saver food store and the massive seizures at Port Everglades are significant victories, but they're just battles in a larger war. Cartels like Sinaloa and CJNG continue to evolve, finding new ways to smuggle drugs and evade detection. The human cost is staggering. 300,000 lives lost to drugs last year, with fentanyl driving the crisis. Each kilo seized represents thousands of lives saved, but the supply keeps flowing. For communities like Brooksville, the arrests brought relief, but the scars remain. Residents who lived in fear of retaliation can now sleep easier, but the threat of new operations looms. The U.S. Coast Guard's aggressive tactics, disabling boats, sinking vessels, and targeting cartel profits, are making a dent, but critics question the legality of strikes in international waters. As the fight intensifies, the balance between justice and escalation remains precarious. Florida remains the front line of America's drug war. From grocery stores to ocean waters, the battle against cartels is a high-stakes chess game. Law enforcement's resolve is unwavering, but so is the cartel's determination. The question isn't just whether Florida can win, it's whether the nation can stem the tide of drugs flooding its shores. With ongoing investigations and a commitment to rooting out these networks, there's hope, but the road ahead is long and treacherous. A grocery store turned drug den, car batteries packed with fentanyl, and a historic Coast Guard haul. This is the reality of America's drug war. What do you think about this shocking story? Share your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world.